thrilled to have with us Dawn Buse. You can see her credentials up there on the slide. She is a licensed psychologist, has positions at a number of institutions, but some things that really stand out are that she is on the board of directors for the American Headache Society, so she has a strong voice in deciding where the field of headache medicine is going. And at a personal level, I've known Dawn for a couple of years now. I've been lucky enough to work closely with her over the past year. We have a program in CHAMP called Mapping the Migraine Patient Journey, and that means we needed to pull together all of the statistics about what is happening. And there's really two people who are the best at that, and that is Richard Lipton and Dawn Buse. And so Dawn has been heavily involved, and we are lucky enough to have Richard Lipton as one of our key advisors for that effort. So if you want to know anything about statistics and how migraine disease is impacting those who live with it in a whole variety of different realms, Dawn is the real expert. And as a licensed psychologist who focuses on issues of migraine and pain, has that deep understanding both in the research side as well as clinical practice, helping people to figure out how to live their best lives possible with these challenging conditions. So Dawn, you are wonderful and amazing, and thank you for taking the time to be one of our guest presenters. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you, Kevin, and thank you to all the CHAMP members and everyone who's participating virtually. I'm really happy to be here. This is my second year getting to participate with Retreat Migraine. I got to come to Texas last year, and of course, like everyone else, was hoping to be in LA today, but nonetheless, I'm glad we can connect virtually. So I know you've already had some great talks yesterday and today. We've got more information coming tomorrow, and I want to share with you both some data, as Kevin mentioned, because one hat I wear is as a researcher. The other hat I wear is as a clinician, as a psychologist who I've spent my whole career focusing on working with people with migraine and chronic pain. So I want to bring those together. I want to talk about you, and I want to talk about living well and thriving, not just surviving with migraine, based on the data and some suggestions that I have learned from people with migraine. So, as you know, the World Health Organization caught up with us and now recognizes that migraine is the second most disabling disease on the planet. You know, migraine can affect every important aspect of your life: work, school, family, financial, academic, personal, social life, parenting, marriage. We know that, you know that, and we've now done studies that also say, hey, you were right. Sometimes you might think some of these studies are kind of like, duh, we knew that. But one reason we do the studies is so that we can now take these data to places like the World Health Organization, like to people who pay for medications and make decisions about what treatments are on formulary, like to physicians and scientists and NIH folks who make decisions at NIH, so that we can say, look, when we surveyed tens of thousands of people with migraine, they told us X, Y, and Z. So let me just give you a quick overview of what we have learned from the literature and the data, which again, we really inform these studies based on what you taught us and told us. And then we ask those questions to tens of thousands of people. We know that migraine affects the person who has it. We call that person the proband in scientific literature. And of course, a spouse, a domestic partner, a significant other, and of course, children, parents, friends and coworkers, and even bigger, to communities, whether it be schools and PTAs or neighborhoods, extended family, teams and organizations, whether it be work or volunteer organizations, and really employers and society. So migraine may be a little pebble that's dropped in the surface of a lake, and those ripples just go and go and go. And for each individual person, your individual constellation of who's in your life and what you do and what is impacted might look a little bit different. But across the board, we know that there is major impact. So I was really happy last fall to be asked to talk about Migraine and its social impact at the International Headache Congress. And this is the scientific organization where headache physicians and researchers from around the world, and other types of headache clinicians as well, come to share the latest scientific data about migraine. I was so happy that this topic was included. So I was flying from San Diego to Dublin. So I had a nice long flight. I had a layover in Atlanta, and I thought, let me ask the people who know best. So I went on the Move Against Migraine page of Facebook, which you probably know, but if you don't know, it's a group of people who choose to join, and it's more than 22,000 people, and it is a moderated group by the American Headache Society, but basically it's a place where people can talk to each other. And I thought, let me really get some advice. So I went on and I posted during my layover, and I had about an hour layover to walk from one gate to the next. What do you want me to tell headache doctors and researchers from around the world about how migraine affected you socially? Get off the plane, I start walking, I walk in between terminals to my next gate, check my phone, and I looked on the page and I had 50 responses in the first couple minutes. By the time I get on the plane and put on my seatbelt and get to check my phone once more before we take off and I have to shut down, I had hundreds of responses. And by the time I land in Dublin, 8 or so hours later, I had about 400 responses of people telling me very personal stories, very painful stories, sometimes funny stories, sometimes angry stories, all of the human emotions that we expect. And so I pulled out these 5 quotes out of so many good heartfelt stories to share with the 1,000 headache doctors, scientists that were attending this meeting. And I stood up on the podium and I said, yesterday I asked people with migraine what they wanted me to tell you, and here's what they wanted me to tell you. That Teresa said missing time with my kids is the hardest part for me. They don't understand the guilt eats you alive. And Susan said migraine is the biggest reason that led to my divorce. And Kristen said, I feel like I let everybody down at work, at home, friends, anywhere they need a commitment. My coworkers resent me. And Betsy said, planning anything is hard because you never know if you'll be able to go. People stop inviting you. I've lost most of my friends. And I wouldn't be surprised if you're viewing this either now live or in the future recorded, if you don't resonate a little bit with what Susan said, with what Kristen said, with what Teresa said. And I wouldn't be surprised if you had other really important, heartfelt stories to add to this page. But I stood up there on the podium in front of 1,000 headache doctors from around the world, and I said, here's what people with migraine experience, and here's what migraine does to their lives. Here's what it steals away. Here's the hardships it creates. So along with my colleagues, Richard Lipton and Michael Reed and other wonderful researchers, we asked these questions to thousands of people with migraine in the Cameo study. Does migraine affect your romantic relationships? You bet. Absolutely. We asked half a dozen questions. If you're divorced, did it lead to divorce? Did it affect dating? Does it affect your sex life? Do you fight about migraine? Do you fight about other things, but the stress is really due to migraine because financial impact on migraine, or not being able to care for children at times because of migraine, or not being able to participate in chores at times because of migraine? Well, 1/3 of people with episodic migraine said yes to multiple of those items, and 2/3 of people with chronic migraine said yes. We also talked about, does having migraine affect your relationships with your children? Does it affect your ability to parent the way that you want to be present, to help with little daily things, to be at big events? And again, 1/3 of people with episodic migraine said yes, and more than half of people with chronic migraine said yes. And also people talked about affecting the quality of their children's lives, that they think their children experience anxiety, worry, other emotions, anger, frustration, guilt, sadness, due to their parent, mom or dad, having migraine. In the Cameo study, we also sent surveys right to spouses or domestic partners and teenagers. And of course, we all want to hear what teenagers have to say. They don't hold back, they tell it like it is. And they did tell us indeed that mom or dad having migraine created hardships in their lives. And as a parent with migraine, hearing this can make you feel pretty guilty, make you feel sad, can make you so angry and frustrated that this disease comes into your life and steals away these important things. The good, interesting news is that the people with migraine themselves reported much higher rates of these feelings and these experiences than the teenagers did. So I think that as a parent, and I'm a parent myself, we take everything so much to heart, and it just eats us up. Whereas the teenagers we surveyed kind of were able to roll with it. Yeah, it was hard, and they couldn't have friends over, or they didn't always have their parents there when they wanted them, or they had to be quiet and keep the lights off. But they seemed to take it in stride to a greater degree than the parent with migraine did, not surprisingly. We asked people, if you think that your finances would be different today if you didn't have migraine, you think your career would be different today if you didn't have migraine, your achievements, what you would accept, what promotions you might have been given, what raises you might have been given. And we have a quarter of people with episodic migraine saying yes, half of those with chronic migraine saying yes to finances, again to career success, and also saying that relationships with coworkers would be better, easier, smoother, friendlier, more collegial without migraine. And again, none of these things are surprising. If they're surprising at all, they may be surprising that the rates aren't even higher, because we know that when someone has more frequent, more severe, more debilitating migraine attacks, that it absolutely interferes with workability. And in another study called My Migraine Voice, which interviewed people in the US as well as European countries, when asked, how do you feel about living with migraine? People say they feel that people don't understand it. They feel depressed. People said, I hate my life. People said, I feel helpless and out of control of my life. And again, this is not surprising. So let's talk about, what are the treatments for migraine? How do we conceptualize really comprehensive care? And this is a slide that I was able to present recently at the Migraine World Summit on stage, which if you want to watch it, you can watch the whole presentation either on the Migraine World Summit Facebook page or on day 9 of the Migraine World Summit, in both places. And basically, I want to think about all the comprehensive treatment options which are available, really starting with education and lifestyle, and the biobehavioral approaches. And when you hear Dr. Amal Starling talk about the seeds for success tomorrow, she's going to focus with the blue and the yellow circle over there, starting with education and behavioral as the building blocks. And then on to pharmacologic. I know you've heard 3 great talks by expert physicians just in the last day. Dr. Rappaport, Dr. Smith, were both, and Dr. Bill Young, all 3 gave great talks about the pharmacologic treatments. As you know, there's acute, there's preventive, there's also neuromodulation or neurostimulation, which comes in a variety of approaches. Basically, it works externally on different nerves in the head, in the neck, to moderate the nervous system and kind of calm and balance the nervous system. And then there are complementary and integrative approaches, non-pharmacologic approaches, which have good data and can be added to really create a optimized treatment experience. So if we think through these lifestyle issues, again, Dr. Starling's going to call them seeds for success because it's S-E-E-D and S. So sleep. Why these all matter, what they have in common, is that they are trying to remind us to keep a regular, healthy routine, 7 days a week if possible. So it's not just getting enough sleep. It's going to sleep at the same time, waking at the same time, as much as possible, 7 days a week. It's eating regularly, keeping the blood sugar levels stable, staying hydrated. It's exercising regularly. That doesn't have to mean an overexertion or something that feels like it's not possible. It can be moving. It can be walking around the block. It can be something that doesn't have a component that might trigger headaches. So it can be swimming, yoga, stretching. It can also be aerobic exercise. There are benefits to all of those. Stress management. You know, John Kabat-Zinn says, we can't stop the waves from coming, but we can learn how to surf. So we really all need to learn how to surf Whether you live with migraine or another chronic illness or not, we all face continual stressors and challenges in our life. That's part of being human. It is not the actual stressor that affects you. It's the response to it. It's what it does to your body and your physiology, your mental and physical well-being that takes the toll on yourself. And so I'm going to talk in a couple minutes about cognitive behavioral therapy, relaxation therapies, and biofeedback. And I'm going to show you what stress looks like on the screen when someone is actually hooked up to biofeedback. Social support, one more S. We are essentially human social creatures. It is so in part of our makeup. It is part of our brain chemistry. All of the lovely neurotransmitters that signal wellness and happiness to us, like oxytocin, the hug hormone, and dopamine, a love hormone, they keep us balanced, they keep us happy. And right now, in the middle of this global pandemic health crisis, we've been cut off from one of our most important sources of well-being. We are socially isolating, and I like the term physical isolation versus social, because hopefully we're trying to keep connections via just like this, via virtual podcasts and streaming and FaceTime and Zoom meetings and all that good stuff. But we really need social connections to live well. And living with migraine, a lot of social connections drop away. A lot of people will say and tell me that they have to miss or say no to so many events that sometimes people stop asking. And we saw that quote that said exactly that. Or people don't want to commit because they don't want to maybe cancel later, let someone down. Or the social interactions just aren't enjoyable anymore because someone really doesn't understand. And yet, what I would hope is that we can work to find social connections that are nurturing, that are beneficial with people who do understand. So it might be a shift in who we spend time with and cultivating friendships that bring good things to your life. And finally, education. We're doing that right now. Thank you to CHAMP and Retreat Migraine for creating this virtual online experience. The Migraine World Summit on Stage has done this as well. The American Migraine Foundation and National Headache Foundation have wonderful podcasts, education support. There's quite a bit available online today of good quality, interesting education. And the more you know, the better that we can care for ourselves. And the interesting thing about migraine and other severe headache is the science keeps developing. We don't have all the answers yet. There is new science and new findings all the time. So pharmacologic treatments, just as a reminder, you heard some great talks about it. We have acute approaches, as needed medications, preventive, things you do in advance to try to reduce or stop attacks, and interventional, trigger points, nerve blocks, toxins like onabotulinum and toxin A. One challenge a lot of people are having that's leading to a lot of stress and anxiety is worry about getting to those interventional treatments right now during this health crisis. A lot of hospitals, medical centers, and physicians and other health providers are limiting, I guess I don't want to call them non-essential, non-emergent and non-COVID-19 activities to keep people safe and home. And so your provider may or may not be giving those treatments right now. And listening to people with migraine, I'm hearing a lot of worries and anxiety about, will I get that treatment? What'll happen if I can't get it for a while? Especially if this is a preventive treatment that works for you, that brings you relief and brings you comfort. Of course, you're going to have a lot of anxiety about what to expect during this hectic time when the world is just turned upside down. I've been talking to headache physicians and other healthcare professionals on a weekly or daily basis. They are really working hard to figure out how to care for you without the face-to-face intervention when possible, using telehealth, and in some cases, maybe changing up your migraine pharmacologic treatments, maybe adding or changing your acute or preventive therapies if they can't get the interventional treatments. And that's absolutely the time to also think about the behavioral non-pharmacologic treatments that you can do at home or learn via an online or app-based approach. So it's a good time to think about that. I know there's a lot of real anxiety right now about what to expect, about how to continue that care. Neuromodulation, as I mentioned, this is a very creative, clever approach that is not new. We actually have pictures of using electric eels to shock the skull 1,000 years ago, which was really clever. Someone figured something out. And now we have a little bit more sophisticated techniques looking at very specific nerves, whether it be in the forehead, whether it be in the neck. There's 5 different types approved right now in the US and several in Europe as well. They are all by prescription, so talk to your healthcare professional about if these might be good treatments for you to either add on to other treatments or even stand alone. So it's lovely that these new treatments keep emerging and that our options keep expanding. And I think that's a very hopeful place to have new treatment options coming out. And I would say the last 2 or 3 years would be just a real renaissance in migraine treatment. The most new treatments we've had in 20 years, and before that, the most new treatments we've had in entire human history, coming out in all sorts of different types of treatments: preventive pharmacologic treatments, acute pharmacologic treatments, neuromodulation, interventional treatments, and new delivery methods for behavioral treatments. So this is a time of hope and excitement. And I often hear people say, I've tried everything, nothing worked, and I believe them. And right now, the nice thing we can say is new treatments have just emerged or are just emerging. You can still have new things to try, and hopefully one or some combination of them are going to help. And complementary and integrative medicine, there's some nice data for things like acupuncture, the benefits of yoga, specific nutritional supplements, and light therapy. Light is a really interesting area. As you know, living with migraine, chances are a good 2/3 of you listening right now probably have sensitivity to light, maybe sound, maybe odors, either before or during attacks, and maybe all the time. Could be every day, all day. And you know, a lot of people will wear sunglasses quite a bit of time. Fortunately, we have some wonderful, very specific light blocking therapeutic sunglasses from Theraspecs, from Axon Optics, and from other makers who actually created specific filters to filter out the most painful light. But one thing that's very lovely about these therapeutic glasses is they're not dark. So you can wear them at work, wear them at school, wear them inside, and you don't look like you're a movie star trying not to look at people. People can see your expression, they can see your eyes, and the connection is much better. And also, I think that it looks a little bit more professional if you are wearing them in the workplace, to have people be able to see you and realize that you're not wearing sunglasses and trying not to look at them. So those are some nice, very specific light blocking therapies. And on the opposite side, there's some very new, interesting light therapy that Dr. Rami Burstein at Harvard developed along with colleagues, called the LA lamp, which actually looks specifically at bringing in a certain bandwidth. And Dr. Burstein did a series of studies over about the last decade, and at first was really interested to see that people systematically said these lights are most painful: the red and the amber and blue, and the green spectrum was not rated as the most painful. And then he started to narrow it down more. And what's interesting is we have cones in our eyes, as you know, that perceive color. We also do have photodinic cones. We have cones that hurt with light. And if you think about why would we have these, are these evolutionarily functional? Well, they are. They help us not stare at the sun and lose our vision. So he started to realize that certain bands of green light not only were the least painful, but might even be soothing. And so there is a whole new area there of non-pharmacologic approaches that you can either try with all of your other therapies or just try as a standalone. And literally some of these things have just come out in the last year. So again, wonderful developments in so many areas. And onto the biobehavioral therapies. So the biobehavioral therapies have grade A evidence from the American Academy of Neurology, the American Headache Society, the National Headache Foundation, American Medical Association, and have hundreds of studies and have been used for 50 years, well established. They include cognitive behavioral therapy, relaxation training, and biofeedback. And traditionally, you would go to see a psychologist, maybe a physical therapist, occupational therapist, maybe a social worker. There's some specific providers who are trained in these different therapies. And you would go for maybe 8 or 10 sessions in the office. And that has been a challenge for people because that's not convenient. Sometimes you can't find a provider. Sometimes people would have problems with insurance coverage, although not always. As a psychologist myself, who I was at the Montefiore Headache Center for the past 13 years, I did not have a problem for patients' insurance coverage. So they very may likely be covered by your insurance. But also, those are barriers and reasons why people don't access these therapies as often as we would hope they would based on their great data and how terrific they are in terms of safety and side effects. But there are a whole range of new emerging technology options, which I'll tell you about in just a moment, which really are bringing these therapies right into the palm of your hand, into the palm of your smartphone, into your home computer, that are more cost effective as well as being more convenient. So I'm going to tell you about some of those options in just a minute. And I'm going to go through and tell you what these look like in case you've really never you've always heard these words, what is biofeedback? I'm going to give you a little insight into what would happen if you came to my office and we had a session. Other therapies you're probably hearing a lot about are the mindfulness-based therapies, mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, mindfulness-based stress reduction, and acceptance and commitment therapy. These therapies are very strongly validated in some other disease states. We are testing them in migraine to see how well they work in migraine prevention, as well as improving associated features, improving disability, depression, anxiety. So they're kind of under testing in migraine, but we know that they have major benefits for living well in general and managing stress and managing anxiety and kind of increasing coping skills, increasing resilience. So if there's something you're interested in, certainly worth looking at. So let me tell you a little bit more about these specific therapies. Excuse me one moment, I'll let you read the slide there. And so, as I mentioned, biofeedback, cognitive behavioral therapy, and relaxation training all have grade A evidence from the U.S. Headache Consortium. They have long-lasting benefits, and they're safe for all stages of life, which includes pregnancy, trying to get pregnant, breastfeeding, and they do even better in their outcomes than medication alone. So if you looked at a traditional preventive medication alone, you looked at, let's say, biofeedback alone, their efficacy is similar, about 50% each. You combine the two and you get more like a 75% efficacy. So they're wonderful add-ons to existing therapies. And once you've learned them and practiced them, kind of go for 8 sessions maybe, but then once you've learned it, you just continue this in your life and the benefits continue for a long lasting time. They're based on the fact that we all have the stress response, which is a elegant survival response, that when our body's under stress, the fight-or-flight response kicks in. That's the part of the sympathetic nervous system that controls heart rate and respiratory rate and blood flow and muscle tension. And it really gets us to a place that we needed to survive from a physical threat. So our heart rate speeds up and we start breathing more heavily to get oxygen into our system, and glucose and cortisol is released. You get a lot of energy, and things that are not necessary in the moment are kind of not focused on, like digestion slows down and other sorts of things. Now, we and animals are all designed to have a very small amount of time in this fight or flight response, and most of our time spent in a more calm place. I'll call it the rest or digest part of the nervous system, parasympathetic branch. But what happens is we have so many stressors in our life, whether they're psychological or emotional, whether they're financial or family or work or migraine, that we spend a lot of time in this fight or flight response, and it becomes hard on our body. Our heart rate's up too much, too long. We have that glucose, adrenaline in our system too much, too often. We feel shaky and jittery. We get anxiety. We have panic attacks. We don't sleep well. We have insomnia. We get weight gained around the middle. These all happen due to prolonged stress response. And in the country and around the world right now, we are all going through a prolonged, very stressful period. So now more than ever, it's really important we practice relaxation and move ourselves back to some calm distraction at least once a day, if not more. And that is, as I mentioned, the relaxation response. It's the opposite of the fight or flight response. Everything in your body is slow down and healthy, and you're getting good blood flow, good circulation. That's important. With migraine, other severe headache, we want to get a lot of oxygen and blood flowing throughout the body, relaxed muscles, deep breathing, good hormonal regulation, keeping everything functioning well. So it's really important to do anything that helps get you to a relaxed state. Just like you like to exercise for your body, this is exercise for your nervous system, and it builds resilience for your nervous system. And it can prevent or reduce the frequency, intensity, or severity of migraine attacks. So some of the ways that we can practice if you were to come to a session in my clinic would be progressive muscle relaxation, diaphragmatic breathing, guided visual imagery, mindfulness, or meditation. But you can actually achieve this calm state of being at home on your own with anything that is calming, centering, and distracting from your worries and your stress. So if you want to put on your favorite song, if you want to watch a funny video, if you want to read a favorite book or spend time with your pet or do meditation or prayer, whatever is calming and soothing to you is good. And right now, during this very intense, stressful time we're all living through, turning down, lessening the amount of time you spend on media, whether it's the popular media such as the news, or even if your social media is anxiety producing, I strongly suggest you limit that to a small amount per day. Maybe 5 or 10 minutes in the morning, 5 or 10 minutes at night. Choose the source that you like, get your highlights, and then shut it down and go do something else, because that's just going to keep us too activated, too much in the fight or flight response. So all of the relaxation responses start with breathing. So while you're listening, put one hand on your chest and one hand on your stomach. And what we're going to do first is notice which is moving. Is your chest rising and falling more? Or is your stomach moving with each breath? And our goal is to breathe in through the nose, fill up the lungs, a lovely deep breath, and as you inhale, notice the lungs expand like a balloon. And then as you exhale, let the lungs to deflate. Now go ahead and put both hands on the belly. Let's take a lovely breath in. I'm going to count to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2. Now that's a nice breath cycle. You don't have to follow that exact cycle. Don't follow if it's too slow for you. Do whatever's comfortable. I don't want you to feel like you're not getting enough oxygen. Now simply doing that lovely breathing for 10 seconds starts to turn down the fight or flight response, improves oxygen into the body, improves circulation, relaxes the muscles. All those good things happen literally the first 10 seconds. So let's all together just do a really big exhale. Exhale out stress, toxins, stress, worries, anything negative in your body. Let's just blow it all out. And now naturally let your lungs fill back up with healthy, rejuvenating oxygen, and continue. And that's something I like to do. If you only have 3 seconds, but you're feeling your tension rising, start with that big exhale. Get everything out. Picture what it is in your mind that you don't want in your mind, your body, and blow it all out. And then just naturally let your lungs fill again. And even that simple breath cycle starts to put us back in the right direction towards balancing the nervous system and moving everything in the right direction. Now, go ahead and make 2 fists, hold up your arms, and clench your biceps. Show me your muscles. This is progressive muscle relaxation. It actually was first mentioned in the medical literature in 1938, so it's been around for a while. And the idea is, if I were to say, now keep your arms up if you're not getting too tired, if I were to say, how much muscle tension do you have right now in your shoulders from 0 to 10? And then I were to say, well, just lower that. Well, it's not real easy to lower and relax our muscle tension just by thinking. But what we're doing here is we're just taking the muscle. We're going to make it tired. We're going to stress it. We're going to exhaust it. And now lay both of your arms right down onto your lap and notice, what do you feel? Do you feel kind of warm and heavy? Do you feel kind of tingly? And that's that lovely feeling as your muscles have really relaxed. The blood and oxygen has moved back in there. Now imagine if you did this from the muscle groups from the top of your head down the tip of your toes. Our goal is to have warm, loose, heavy muscles to really allow for circulation throughout the entire body. You may not want to do this if you have headache or migraine either coming on or in the middle of attack. It may not be comfortable, or you may find at any time that you don't want to tense the muscles of your face or your jaw, maybe your neck or shoulders. You might want to avoid those areas if you've ever had any problems or challenges with neck pain, any spinal cord issues, or if you have TMJ issues. Just check with your doctor before practicing this exercise. But play around with this one, see if you like it. This, as well as diaphragmatic breathing and guided visual imagery, are all on my website, where I have free relaxation exercises, as well as all over. You can look so many places and find lovely relaxation exercises all over. Free apps in the iTunes store and the Google Play Store. Lovely relaxations and meditations on YouTube, certainly, as well as apps which cost a little bit but are very popular, like Headspace and Calm.com. Those are all great places to practice this sort of visual imagery, diaphragmatic breathing, and progressive muscle relaxation. So guided visual imagery, which you heard me mention a couple times now, is a way to calm and focus the mind, but still have a little bit of a story. I find that if you don't have a little bit of a story, it's easy for the mind to wander and those worries come back in. So what I like to do with guided visual imagery is just go to a relaxing, beautiful place, a place you feel warm and safe, like a lovely day at your favorite beach, a walk in the mountains on an autumn afternoon with the leaves changing colors, anywhere that sounds soothing and comfortable. And you just get yourself into that image by thinking of what you see, what you feel, what you smell, all of your senses. So let's just take 30 seconds, close your eyes. Let's just imagine it's a warm summer day. You're standing on a beautiful beach. Feel the soft sand beneath your feet. The blue ocean stretching out in front of you in all directions, as far as the eye can see. And as the waves come in, take a lovely inhale. Notice the salty smell of the ocean. You feel little droplets of cool sea breeze, of cool sea spray on your arms and your face. And breathe out, enjoying the beauty and the sounds of nature all around you. So open your eyes. So guided imagery can be any place you'd like to be. Guided means someone else is walking you through it, but you can walk yourself through it. You can check out different images available online at so many different places. And it's a wonderful way to calm your nervous system and again exercise your nervous system, really balance and provide a lot of resilience to your nervous system. So talking about biofeedback is a really interesting learning experience. Some of you may have tried it, and probably most of you have heard about it. It simply means feeding back biologic information to the person. So you can see this picture of someone, and she's hooked up to several modalities. So on her forehead, that would measure forehead muscle tension, and on her finger, that would measure blood volume, pulse, finger temperature, and galvanic skin response, which is goosebumps and sweaty palms, and then probably muscle measurements, and there are other measurements as well. Biofeedback is validated for so many specific conditions, including migraine and other severe headache, but these are the main modalities we use in migraine management. And the screen that you see can look like a video game, or it can look more like a printout. And the idea is that you might be with a psychologist or a technician, and they might say, let's talk about something stressful. And you literally see what your body looks like, what's going on in there. And then they say, let's do a relaxation exercise. And you look at your body. So you learn to notice what it feels like to feel activated. You learn to calm, soothe, and restore your body as well. So I'm going to share with you a screen from a session with one of my patients who gave me permission to share it. And here is her screen from doing 2 minutes of relaxation. And if you look at it, the color of the word matches the color of the line. So blood volume pressure is in red, respiration, breathing is the nice blue waves there, and she would have a belt around her waist. Finger temperature is in yellow. You could see that increasing as she's relaxing. And then the forehead muscle tension is in pink on the bottom. And there's some other measures, but that gives you a general idea. So this was a person who I met many years ago who really enjoyed learning the meditation, was practicing yoga. And here you can see in these 2 minutes that as she's doing her relaxation, she's really calming her body. Now, I'm going to show you what it looked like when I asked about her day at work. I asked, how was your day at work today? And she said it wasn't that bad. Now, you tell me, I think you've become a biofeedback expert now. She thinks it's not that bad, but what do we see in her body as she's thinking about her day at work? We're seeing blood pressure increase, the real dramatic change in her breath to a short, shallow breath. We're seeing drop in her finger temperature in 10 seconds. And each of these little sections that you see are 10 seconds. So that is what happens in 10 seconds of thinking about something stressful. So biofeedback, even if you go for a shorter period of time, helps you learn what's really going on with your body as you go through certain thoughts, certain stressors, or certain physical events like a migraine attack. And then it helps you really learn to kind of calm, restore, and reset your body and your nervous system. So it's a really interesting thing to do. And I'll talk about in just a minute, there are more and more options every day coming to market about at-home options for learning and practicing biofeedback, including on your smartphone or via other technology. So hopefully it will become more and more accessible to people over time. And finally, cognitive behavioral therapy. Cognitive behavioral therapy is a very focused form of therapy, and you usually go anywhere between, let's say, 8 to 10 sessions, maybe it's 8 to 12 sessions. And you focus on building and enhancing coping skills and restructuring cognitive distortions and modifying stimulus arousal. What that means is, when I said it's not the stressor that matters, it's how you react to it. It's what it means to you. It's how your body reacts that matters. As we start to kind of separate the event versus our perception versus our reaction. Now, I'm only spending a few seconds talking about CBT. There's obviously a lot more to it, but just to give you an idea, if you go do cognitive behavioral therapy, those are some of the things you're going to do. And as I mentioned, a lot of these behavioral techniques are coming to you now via more cost-effective, less expensive, and certainly easier approaches that you can do in your own home or at any time, anywhere that you'd like to, including there's a lot of smart apps being developed for migraine where in diaries data is entered and used to try to predict attacks. There's several companies developing biofeedback via using the smartphone. I'm working with a company called Unison Mind. We're now called Juve Health, and we're working on a biofeedback app using your smartphone. Matthias Lindy and Ankar Stugard are physicians in Norway who have a company called NordicBrainHealth.com, and they just published their first feasibility trial with a biofeedback app for children and adolescents in Norway. BioTrack Health Halo has biofeedback, and then there's also some biofeedback that's not specific to migraine, including things that you may already have on your smartwatch or your smartphone, looking at heart rate variability or helping with breathing pacing. So there's all sorts of technology out there. There's ways to do CBT online now. You can use apps, you can use text to talk to a therapist or psychologist, and then there's many mindfulness relaxation apps that are out there, some free, some paid, like Headspace and Calm.com are very popular apps that are out there. And I just mentioned some here that I know are popular amongst people with migraine that I talk to, but I'm sure there are so many out there that I don't even know about. If you have something you love, please tweet me or email me and let me know. I would love to learn about new programs, apps, and devices that you think are good ways to learn and practice some of these approaches. To find an actual psychologist provider, this tends to be something that people say, great, but I don't know how to find someone. Several scientific organizations have lists of providers, including the American Psychological Association, ABCT, which is the American Association for Behavioral and Cognitive Therapies, and AAPB, which is the Biofeedback Organization. And you can either take a quick picture of this screen, or if you forget all these names, on my website under resources, these and more are listed for finding biofeedback, finding CBT, other kinds of helplines, finding DBT, which is a whole other topic for another day, but those are on my website, and I'm always adding whenever I find new resources. So I want to wrap up in the next couple minutes with my best suggestions, combining the scientific data with what I have learned from people living with migraine in my 20 years as a psychologist working in this field, about really not just how to survive, but how to thrive with migraine. And some of these ideas came from a Migraine World Summit talk I gave in 2019. So if you'd like to hear that whole talk, go to the Migraine World Summit Facebook page and you can hear that whole talk. But let me give you my best pearls and tricks and tips for living the life you want to live. First off, let's acknowledge that the life you're living may not be what you planned. I don't think any little girl or little boy says, I want to grow up and have a chronic, painful, unpredictable disease which negatively affects my life. Certainly no one says I want to grow up and have a disability that negatively affects my life, or that I want to live with painful attacks. And it certainly may have derailed your goals and your dreams and your plans in many ways. So I want to stop and offer respect to that loss and say everyone deserves permission to grieve that loss. It is a loss, and this is not what you planned and what you expected. Full stop. And it's certainly okay to think about, what have you missed and lost because of migraine? What might you have done? What might have been different? And again, spend some time and respect those feelings, those experiences. You certainly have a right to all of the feelings that come with being selected at random by the universe for this, again, chronic, unrelenting, painful, unpredictable disease. And chances are you feel even more feelings that aren't listed here. I listed some of the common feelings that we know of, and you probably feel many of these and more. And that is understandable. And when we asked in My Migraine Voice in 2018, again, how do people feel? As you remember, I showed this earlier, they feel that other people don't understand. They feel depressed because of migraine. They feel that they're not in control of their own lives. But the same study asked about, is there anything positive about living with migraine? And more than half the people endorsed at least one thing that was positive about living with migraine. People said it taught me how to cope. It's made me stronger. Living with challenges does make us stronger. It does teach us. It does really help us become who we want to be and who we're meant to be. And people who live with migraine, migraine warriors, are very strong and resilient people. They get knocked down, they get back up. The meaning and definition of resilience is how to cope and survive with challenges. And I think there's a lot of resilience in people who live with migraine. The fact that you're listening to these talks in Retreat Migraine this weekend shows that you care about learning more, you care about educating yourselves, and you care about trying to get to the best treatments and resources that you deserve. So, a couple thoughts along the way. Please be kind, gentle, and patient with yourself. As a psychologist who spent the last 20 years working with people with migraine and other chronic illness, I hear so much self-criticism, guilt about not being the parent you want to be, about not being the spouse you want to be, about letting people down, of not achieving. I think, and I know people with migraine have kind hearts, and I know that you're nicer to other people than you might be to yourself. I would like you to be kind to yourself. Be as gentle and forgiving to yourself as you might be talking to someone else who has a chronic disease that they did not choose. Find your tribe. You may have made some choices along the way to kind of put some friendships on the shelf, which maybe don't bring all positive experiences, or people who maybe don't understand as well. Seek out people who understand. They might be in your exact same boat. They might be people who live with migraine or other chronic disease, or they just may be people who are more compassionate and care about you and see you for who you are, despite attacks, despite sometimes needing to cancel or missing things or limitations. Find those people, surround yourself with those people, and remember that you have things to offer to them just as they have to offer to you. These may be in-person connections, they may be virtual connections, they may be both some of the time. Ask for and accept help. I find that people living with chronic illnesses are very strong and stoic and often become very isolated. They don't want to bother anyone. They feel like they're always asking for help. Well, you know what? It's actually doing a service to the other person. It makes people feel good to help you. They want to help you. Let them help you and tell them exactly how they can help you. Yes, thank you. I could use X, Y, and Z. Yes, please pick me up at the grocery store. Yes, if you'd like to drive my child to school tomorrow, that would be terrific. Yes, I could use that help. Have a plan ready. Know what you want to ask them and ask them, and it will make them happy to help you. Volunteer and serve, and we see some of our beautiful migraine warriors here doing all of these wonderful things that go on in the community throughout the year, raising awareness, raising funding for advocacy, whether it's within the migraine space or within other spaces. Helping others is a great treatment for depression and anxiety. It takes you outside of your own focus, at least temporarily, and it also really helps with your own self-worth and value and helps you feel more confident and powerful. So think about ways that you want to be engaged and activated and help and serve others. And finally, please don't forget to get professional help when you need it. It's literally why some of us are here. It is my calling and passion. It's what I trained for. And I and people like myself around the world want to be here to help you. If you feel like depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, PTSD, or re-triggering of trauma, substance abuse, or self-harm are becoming beyond your control, please reach out to any one of us. Please look on my website under resources. There's hotlines, there's warm lines. I like the warm lines. You can call and talk to someone even if it's not a crisis. And talk to your headache healthcare professional, talk to your primary care health professional. They all have resources. We're here to help. The help is temporary to get you through and go over and across this time and continuing on. And we always have to accept what we can't change and what we can't control and let go of that. So a bit of the serenity prayer. And as I said, as John Kabat-Zinn said, we can't stop the waves from coming, but we can learn how to surf. And learning how to surf are the things I've talked about, all of these resilience enhancers. The exercise, the sleep, the stress management, the seeking out your tribe, the getting engaged when if you want to, and volunteering and being an advocate when and where you want to. These are all the things that will make you feel back in control of your life. You own your life, not migraine. You need to feel back in control of your life. Reclaim your identity. It's very easy when you are in a patient role to start to lose all those other parts of yourself. And you are so much more than a person with migraine, and you are so much more than a patient. And remember all those things, all those skills, all those talents, all those strengths, all those amazing things that make you the sparkly, multifaceted diamond that you are. Remember and embrace those things. You are not just a person with migraine. You are a person with migraine who has all these other talents and abilities and facets to you. And sometimes we do have to adjust our expectations. This is a very simple formula that's come out of happiness research, that we can change the reality, which is up in the numerator, or we can change the denominator, which is expectations. And while this sounds very simple, the key to happiness is slightly lowered expectations. As I tell my husband, the key to a happy marriage is low expectations. It sounds kind of funny, but being comfortable with treatments, being comfortable with ourselves, all of this, we need to have realistic expectations. I'm joking a little bit when I say low expectations, but realistic expectations so that we can be content with our reality. And finally, the last thought I want to leave you with is that life doesn't have to be perfect to be beautiful. And the Japanese have an art called golden joinery, or kintsugi, where beautiful, expensive porcelain pottery that royalty had, when it broke, instead of throwing it away, it would be filled with precious metals, with gold and turquoise and silver and platinum. And it really became an art form in itself, that the resulting bowl or sculpture is even more beautiful and unique than the original cookie cutter bowl or sculpture. So the idea is repairing wounds with gold. So your life probably does look different than what you expected it to look like. But different doesn't have to be bad. Different can still be beautiful, valuable, and rewarding. Thank you. With that, I know we're a few minutes over time. I apologize, but I would be happy to take any questions or have any discussion.
First of all, that was an amazing presentation that you gave. Thank you. So many just laudatory comments in the comments section, people commenting on how soothing your voice is and your affect, and I couldn't agree more, and the value that brings when the world and this disease can sort of spiral up. One of the questions to start with here, and we will take a couple, is this concept. You had those multiple circles of, it's the pharmacologics, devices, lifestyle changes, there's all these different things, and it's like on top of already being sick, there's this pressure, expectation that in order to be better, I have to do all of these things. And people, I think they acknowledge the need to make progress in these areas, but as a psychologist, what do you see as the smartest approach people can do? Should they try to start one new thing at a time? Should they try to, like the reverse cold turkey, start doing all these new healthy things at once? Should they take little baby steps with multiple different ones? What's going to be the smartest strategy that allows someone to change and improve their behaviors that sticks over time?
That's a great question. And I think it's a very good point, Kevin, and listeners who raised this question, that when I'm saying we have all these options, there's all these things you can do, now that becomes a pressure. Oh my gosh, I have to do all these things. And if you don't, you do hear from other people in your life, oh, have you tried X and have you tried Y and why not? So hopefully I don't want these options to feel like a pressure. There's about 3 of them that I mentioned that will be with your healthcare professional. So certainly the acute and preventive pharmacology, the medicine, and the interventional medicine, and the neurostimulation, that's all going to be with your doctor. So I would talk to your doctor, and you may start with a primary care doctor, or you may already see a neurologist or a headache expert. And whichever type of professional you see, as long as you're comfortable with that person in your communication and how well they work with you and listen to you, I would work with him or her to create the right plan for you out of those combinations. Generally, the rule of thumb is that almost everyone, so 90% or 97% of men and 98% of women in the US, at least in our studies, use acute therapy as needed medication at least once a year. So most people are using as needed medication. It may come from over the counter or it may be a prescription. Your doctor is going to talk with you about if you want to try a preventive therapy, and that's usually considered when your headache day frequency increases and your disability increases. So if you tell your doctor I'm losing 2 days a week to migraine and it's really affecting work and home, he or she is going to think about preventive treatments. And that could be medication, it could be injections, and it could be neurostimulation. Those are going to be with your doctor. On your own are where you can think about the education. And there's so much out there that I would say just watch and listen to what you're interested in as you're interested. So no need to push yourself. There's plenty of good information out there, and there's new information all the time. So I would say for the education, do listen to what you're interested in and what your focus is on. And the behavioral really is an option that I like to think about either in times when medication is not a good treatment. So pregnancy, people who don't care for medication, when your medication is not working well enough, or if it's something you've never tried and you feel like stress management would really be a value.
Got it. Anything more on that, or I have another question to switch to?
Right, excuse me.
Let you take a sip there and clear your throat. So another question is on breathing practices. Is it essential to do it one certain way? Someone wrote in that they do a technique of 4, 7, 8. They breathe for a count of 4, they hold it for a count of 7, and they breathe out of 8. Can that work just as well as the breathing exercise that you brought us through today? Or is there something unique about what you shared that you think makes it better than other patterns?
Well, that's a great question. There are quite a few ways to do breathing and quite a few ways to teach it. If you're in a yoga class, you might learn one way. If you're in a different, if you're learning with a certain app, you might learn another way. I think that they're all fine as long as you feel like you're filling your lungs and you are exhaling out completely and you're just slowing the process down. So slowing the breathing process down is very valuable because it's tied to your heart rate. It's tied to something called heart rate variability. Heart rate variability is a measure of cardiovascular health, and it seems a little counterintuitive, but it turns out more variability in between timing from beat to beat is a healthy thing. When you slow your breathing rate, it exercises your heart in a good way and improves that heart rate variability. So you can certainly learn more about heart rate variability. It's a little complex, but it's really interesting. And so as long as you're breathing deeply and slowing down the pace, you can choose and follow any approach that you like.
Okay, great. So I'm going to give one comment and then we'll finish with a question. The comment was sort of a question too, and it was about phone apps for migraine and the challenge with them for people who have constant daily migraine, that they're hard, and they were asking if you knew of any apps. I don't know of any, but I know I'm talking to some of the people with the app companies. I know that you are as well, Dawn, and I think it's a great suggestion to have a setting that you could select to say, I constantly have a headache. Asking me if today, did you have a migraine or not? That's not a useful question, but there are lots of other questions. How bad was it? What type of migraine it was? It would allow those people to meaningfully use the apps. Do you know of any ones that allow for that type of selection?
That is a great question and a great point. I'm not sure of any of those right now that currently have that setting.
Yep.
Daily headache or migraine or constant headache or migraine. But as we know, the couple apps which were really designed specifically for migraine, they are people that we all talk to those creators, whether it's probably N1 or Migraine Buddy are two of the most popular and common, and they're very responsive to user feedback. So I would say that a user can email or contact them directly, or Kevin, you coming from CHAMP could say, hey, we have several people who are interested in this, and I would not be surprised if they try to create that modification for.
Yeah, and if it doesn't already exist, in the comments, I believe LaQuinda's saying that Migraine Buddy might already have that. So that would be one place to start. I'll take a look as well, and if it doesn't exist, I'll certainly encourage those. So then the last one is as a psychologist, there's this thing, it's called migraine personality. What do you think about that, the validity of it or not?
That comes from the history, and our wonderful Dr. Freud is the person who actually started this idea. So it goes way back to the 1950s, 1960s, that migraine originally was thought to have this psychological reason for existing, and it was related to primarily women being hysterical. And that's where this migraine personality came from, this idea of that anxiety was maybe a cause, certainly a trigger of more frequent and intractable migraine. So every piece of research we have today does not support that, and there's not support for a migraine personality. We do know that migraine has comorbidities, and comorbidity just means that two conditions occur at a higher rate than you would expect in the population. And migraine has 25 comorbidities that I know of, that we just published a manuscript last month, which is available free actually online from the Journal of Headache and Pain, looking at migraine comorbidities. And some of those that might go into the idea of a migraine personality might be depression, anxiety, childhood abuse and maltreatment, traumatic brain injury, post-traumatic stress disorder, bipolar disorder, self-harm, substance use. Those are all comorbid with migraine. Now, it doesn't mean that one causes the other. In many cases, they may have a shared underlying reason that causes both. So, for example, the neurotransmitter that's very active in migraine is also active in depression and anxiety. That's serotonin. It's actually involved in both the processes for all of those conditions, actually all three of those conditions. So migraine has many comorbidities, but it doesn't mean that one is causal, and it doesn't mean that this is anyone's fault. We, by far and away, know that migraine is a genetic disease. So if there's anyone to blame, blame your parents. No, don't blame your parents. But we know that it's genetic. If you have one parent with migraine, you have a 50% chance of inheriting it, and two parents gives you about a 75% chance of inheriting it. So migraine's in your genes. It's not in your personality.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Again, a wonderful presentation. Thanks to the Migraine World Summit team who helped with the design of those slides. Did a beautiful job. All their content is amazing. Again, encourage people to visit their website to see more incredible talks